Hey everybody, it's me, your favorite librarian, Mrs. M. Back with another First Chapter Friday with the Main Student Book Awards. Today I have Learning to Fall, written by Sally Engelfried, and it is clearly about skate learning. So we're going to read the blurb, and we're going to read the first chapter. It's a little long, so let's get into it. Daphne doesn't want to be stuck in Oakland with her dad. She wants to get on the first plane to Prague, where her mom is shooting a movie. Armed with her grandparents' phone number and strict instructions from her mom to call them if her dad starts drinking again, Daphne has no problem being cold to him. But there's one thing Daphne can't keep herself from doing: joining her dad and her new friend Arlo at a weekly skate session. When her dad promises to teach her how to ollie and she lands the trick, Daphne starts to believe in him again. She learns that there's more to her dad's absence than her mom told her. The way her dad tells it, skating is all about accepting failure and moving on. But can Daphne really let go of her dad's past mistakes? Let's find out. This is Chapter 1 of Learning to Fall by Sally Engelfried. Where was he? The sign above my head said passenger pickup, so I knew I was in the right place. I couldn't believe this was happening again. The knot of worry that had been sitting in my gut all morning tightened every time someone got into a car. Why did Mom think we could trust him to be here? My flight landed half an hour ago. I pulled my phone out of my back pocket, and then I remembered my mom was still on the plane to Prague. Calling her wouldn't do any good. I looked up and down the pickup area for the thousandth time. Should I call my grandparents? Mom told me to contact them in case of an emergency. Being stranded at the Oakland airport was an emergency, was it? I started scrolling through my contacts. Right when I found their number, a horn beeped and a beat-up blue Toyota skidded to a stop at the curb next to me. My dad popped out of the driver's side, a huge grin on his face. I slowly slid my phone back into my pocket, staring at him. It had been so long since I'd seen him. He looked the same, minus the scruffy beard he used to have. "Daphne!" he called across the car roof, waving wildly like I might not notice him if he didn't. I couldn't seem to move. He slammed the car door and ran over, throwing his arms around me. "Daph!" he murmured into my hair. "It's so good to see you." I stood there while he squeezed me, my arms pinned to my side. I didn't say a word. He finally let go, and I took a step back to put more space between us. "I can't believe you're 12 years old already," he said, smiling. Was I supposed to be impressed he knew how old I was? I tried to give him the cold fish, which involves leaning your head slightly to the right, raising your eyebrows a little, making your eyes as dead as possible, but my dad's eyes were so wide and excited, as if my face was the best, most amazing thing he'd ever seen. It made my stomach dip in a way it hadn't for a while. I turned away and studied the sea of cars in the parking lot, blinking my eyes a bunch of times. 3 years, I reminded myself. 3 years, and the only reason he's here is because Mom needs a babysitter. I turned back when he grabbed the handle of my rolling suitcase. "I'll get this," he said. He looked down at my hands and then up at my face. "No board, huh?" "Nope." This time I did manage the cold fish. "I don't skate anymore." "Oh." The brightness in his eyes dimmed. Then he flashed his single dimple at me, the same one that showed up on my face when I smiled. "I've got an extra board at the house if you want to get back into it." He slung my suitcase into the hatchback. "What do you think?" I shrugged, my eyes on the ground. My dad cleared his throat. "Well, hop in. We're about 20 minutes from home." In the car, he drummed his hands on the steering wheel as he waited for the light to change at the airport exit. "So you don't dominate at the parks? Show off your sick tricks?" "Nope." The words squeezed out of my lips, flat and expressionless. "No tricks." I stare at the passenger window, but he kept trying. "Grandma and Grandpa are really looking forward to seeing you." "Oh." I hadn't really thought about my grandparents being part of this trip until Mom programmed their numbers into my phone. I was supposed to call them if I saw my dad drink any alcohol whatsoever, even so much as a sip of beer, Mom insisted. "We're having dinner with them tomorrow night." "Okay." Maybe I wasn't thrilled to be here with my dad, but it might be nice to see my grandparents again. It had been so long I couldn't even picture their faces. But they sent me a card with a crisp $50 bill every birthday and Christmas. Mom liked to remind me that just because they send you money doesn't mean you owe them anything. But I figured it meant they must care about me, at least a little. So the house is kind of a mess. I'm still working on it. My dad was still trying to make conversation. "It's fine." I sensed him glaring at me, but I kept staring out the window. I hadn't expected Oakland to look so different from Los Angeles. The sky here was a different color, wisps of white clouds making the blue even bluer, compared with the yellowy brightness of LA. If Mom was here, we'd try to figure out what else made it different. Were the houses closer together? Were the trees greener? But it was my dad, so I just stared and wondered on my own until he pulled up in front of a small house with a wide porch and peeling green paint. "Yeah," he plowed on. "I think this place will end up being pretty nice. Your grandparents were so happy I finally..." Well, anyway, they helped me get the house. I could never afford to live here if they hadn't. Nice, I muttered. They gave him a house? Did he know about all the times Mom had to beg our housemates for an extension on the rent, or the time a few years ago when we had to sleep at her friend Sherry's pull-out couch for 2 months? My dad kept talking. It's a fixer-upper, nothing fancy. My friend Gus is a contractor, and he lives next door. We have a deal. I'm helping him work on his house first, and then he's going to help me. But when I heard a couple months ago you were coming, we switched it so that we could fix up your room first. It's all done. A couple of months ago? I said, startled out of my cold fish. But Mom just got the part. Right. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel and glanced over at me, then looked quickly away. Well, I was hoping she'd get it. Oh, that was strange. As far as I knew, he and Mom only talked that minute before Mom handed the phone over to me for the awkward conversation I'd been having with my dad once a month for the past 2 years. My stomach dipped again with the sudden missing of Mom and home. It felt wrong to be staying with this dad I barely knew, in a room that was mine but I'd never seen before, having dinner with grandparents I could hardly remember. But it didn't matter how much I missed Mom or our little apartment. She wasn't home, and we'd sublet our place to an actor friend of hers. As mad as I was at her for sending me away, I really did get it. It was huge that she'd gotten this movie part. It was going to change our lives, she said. Besides, soon enough I'd be right there with her in Prague, and I wouldn't have to deal with staying with my dad. My dad didn't say anything as he led me up the path to the porch. He fumbled with his keys. He dropped them twice. When he finally got the door open, he looked over his shoulder and smiled. I followed him inside, realizing something. I'd never been anywhere my dad lived. He'd always picked me up, or Mom dropped me off to meet him somewhere. It made this whole situation seem even more strange. My black van scuffed the wood floor of the small living room. It had the air of not really being settled yet. There was a shabby brown couch and a bookcase, a few cardboard boxes stuffed into the corner, and a stack of framed pictures leaning against the wall. My dad let out a stiff laugh as he walked me through the kitchen, which was small and dark with an ugly yellowy green stove. I'll redo this one of the days. I'm not much of a cook, but even I can see how hideous it is. When I didn't say anything, his smile faded. He led me down the hall. He pointed to one door. Bathroom, then the next one to it. My room, and then he opened a door at the end of the hall. And here's your room. I couldn't hold back a gasp of amazement. It was huge. I'd never had a bedroom to myself before. Mom and I moved around a lot. Until recently, we'd always shared a room in a house with other people, so when we got our own one-bedroom apartment last year, it was a thrill just to be by ourselves. We'd put up a curtain to divide the bedrooms, so we'd each have our own space. Now that Mom was getting some money from this movie, we talked about getting a bigger place sometime soon. But this big square room filled with light, it belonged to me now? I stood in the center and slowly turned around to take in every inch of the space that was mine for as long as I had to stay here. One wall was painted a deep dark blue, the color of night sky. The others were a soft white, and one had a large square window that looked into the backyard. A small table stood on one side of the bed, with a low bookshelf on the other. I sat down on the bed and bounced gently, thinking of my single mattress on the floor at home. My best friend Samantha thought it was cool that I got to sleep on the floor, but I envied her big double bed with its metal frame. My dad stepped in behind me. Your grandma stopped me from getting all pink bedding. I remember you used to like that, but she said you would have outgrown it by now. I ran my head over the bedspread, which had stripes of silky dark purple and dark blue velvet. Then I thought about painting all the walls different colors, but figured white would keep it nice and bright, and you can put pictures up if you want. Or you can repaint it if you don't like the blue. What do you think? Cold fish, I reminded myself, looking around, conscious of my dad watching me. Did he think a pretty bedroom would erase all the time we hadn't spent together? It's all right, I said flatly. I walked over to the window to avoid looking at him. The truth was, I had already fallen fully in love with the room, but no way I would admit it. I pretended to study the yard, even though it was just a bunch of weeds with some broken lawn furniture. A loud scrape, slam, came from somewhere nearby. My heart sped up to match its rhythm. What's that? My dad stepped next to me. That? Oh, that's Gus's bowl. Bowl? Yeah, his skate bowl. He has one in his backyard. You'll see it later today. I'll lend you a board. A bunch of us go over there to skate every Tuesday. Silver Bowl Sesh, we call it. My dad tapped the gray, sprinkled hair at his temples. Because of us skaters getting so old. A skate bowl right next door? I pressed my ear to the cool glass. That sound. There was something so satisfying about it. So right, like something clicking into place. The old feeling rose in me from the soles of my Vans up to my brain. My fingers twitched with the urge to grab a skateboard and make that sound myself. Pretty cool, right? My dad's excitement reminded me to hide my own. I guess, I said. From the front of the house, a voice called out, Joe, you home? Who's that? I turned from the window. Must be Gus. Probably wants to borrow a tool. Come on, I'll introduce you. He was already in the hall, but I stayed a second longer. I was hoping to hear the sound again, but it had stopped. I let out a little sigh and went to meet this Gus person. So, Daff is not feeling very confident in her dad. If you want to find out if it works out, come on down to the library and grab Learning to Fall, Maine Student Book Award book by Sally Engelfried. Bye, everybody!